Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society. We are grateful to gather on this beautiful morning, both in person and online, for a time of inspiration, reflection, and connection. Whether you join us today with joy in your heart, weighted with burdens, or searching for meaningful connections, we are glad that you are here. As we begin our service, we pause to remember that each of us is sustained by the land where we make our homes and our livelihoods, land that was once dominated by tallgrass prairie. We remember that for centuries before colonization, Native people lived in interdependence with this land that we call home. We give thanks for their stewardship as we seek to live more sustainably on this land. We give thanks particularly to the Kickapoo, the Iowa, the Sauk, and Meskwaki, and the Oceti-Sakowin nations for their continued stewardship as we seek to live in reciprocity with this land. I'm the Reverend Diana Smith, the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a somewhat tall, white woman in my mid-40s with short, curly, white, blonde, and brown hair, wearing purple glasses, a gray dress, and a sagey green stole with leaves on it. I'm standing in UUS's pulpit in the front of our sanctuary. Our sanctuary is somewhat filled with people of all ages. I think the snow has kept a few more people at home watching online. Hello there, we see you. And we are glad that you are doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. Through the windows, we can see that it is snowing, and the trees and the plants are coated with a gorgeous little white covering. To protect the water in their bodies, the deciduous trees have released their leaves and are in the phase called winter rest, a deep molecular slowing down. In their rest, they're safeguarding life. As Unitarian Universalists, love is the core value of our covenantal faith. As people of many ages, genders, races, sexual orientations, classes, abilities, and health statuses, we gather together as a radically welcoming spiritual community. During our services, we draw inspiration and meaning from thoughtful people of the past and present, and use sources as diverse as poetry, nature, science, and personal experience. And we covenant together to affirm and promote 7 principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. This congregation has endorsed and adopted an 8th principle, which calls for us to be committed to active anti-racism work. This morning, as we mark Lunar New Year, we celebrate rest and how we learn to rest. We marvel at the many ways we can affirm the worth and dignity of every person and encourage ourselves and our communities to spiritual growth. If you're newer to this congregation, we invite you to learn more about Unitarian Universalism and our community after the service. For those who are here in person, you can talk to a greeter in the atrium. If you're online, there's a link to a visitor form in the YouTube notes that will help us connect with you. And if you need to use an app or a device to help you engage with the worship service, feel free to connect to the UUS Wi-Fi. We ask everyone else to make sure you're not connected to our Wi-Fi during the service. And so now Jenna Sup Montgomery will share a call to worship.
Today, let us build our worship in repose. Let us set aside all the striving, the reaching, the need to prove our worth. As Mary Oliver reminds us, you do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. We do not need to be more than we are, do more, have more. Let us simply gather in love and our soft animal ways.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alex Hitland, the music director. I'm a tall white man wearing a cream sweater today. Next to me is Chihui at the piano. Glad you're here. And behind me, the UUS singers. And it's time for us to sing together. Yes? All right. The first song we're singing is If You Have the Gray Book number 346. If you didn't grab a book on your way in, that's fine. The words are on the screens. That's great. In the third verse of this song, it talks about rain, and I thought it would be just fun to replace the word rain with snow. It'll make sense when it comes up, I think. All right, so I invite you to rise in body and spirit as we sing. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Get ready for snow. Come walk in snow with me. Come walk in snow with me. Come walk in snow with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jenna Soot Montgomery, a worship associate and a member of UUS. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a white woman with brown chin-length hair, blue eyes, and sometimes a black mask. I'm wearing a black sweater and a blue and black scarf. As Unitarian Universalists, we light a flame within a chalice as a symbol of sanctuary and safety, to unite us in our worship and to remind us of our ongoing search for the light of truth. This morning, Misha will light our chalice. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words. Yes. Oh. No, I think we're good. We're good. We're good. Crisis averted. Now join me in saying the chalice lighting words. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the wonder and mystery of this great gift. So let us now kindle the flame of our liberal religious heritage and renew our covenant of mutual love and care. Love is our doctrine, the quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to serve those in need, This we promise, this we covenant with life and one another. Each week we light a candle for justice and healing to acknowledge our interdependence with the natural world and with all members of the global community, especially the most vulnerable. We light this candle so that we may not be numbed to injustice and trauma, but rather find strength, courage, and love as we work in solidarity with others for liberation, justice, and healing. Together, we create resilience and hope. Today, as we light this candle, we mourn the plague of gun violence in our country and the impossibly devastating mass shootings that destroy so many lives. This morning, in particular, we hold the community of Monterey Park, California, in our hearts. As I light this candle, let's hold a time of silence to listen to our hearts and bodies, or perhaps to lift up prayers.
So, this morning, I get to lead our Time for All Ages. And we're starting with a few years ago, a woman named Tricia Hersey began what's called the NAP Ministry. The NAP Ministry is about helping us learn to rest. At the end of last year, she published a book called Rest is Resistance, and we'll be talking about that more later. In her book, she says that we are born knowing how to rest and to listen to what our bodies need. It's second nature and an inner knowing. Infants and children follow their body cues. This inner knowing is slowly stolen from us as we replace it with disconnection. We have been bamboozled and led astray by a culture without a pause button. We are barely surviving from our sleep deprivation, worker exploitation, and exhaustion. We must rest. Now, those of you who are younger might notice that you often know more about resting and that you're better at resting than your parents. When I was on medical leave recently, something I had to do was learn how to rest better so that my body could heal. And I still need to rest more than I did before I got sick. Sometimes I tell people I'm following kindergarten rules. With my long sleep at night and my long afternoon nap, our friends at Oak Knoll, which is a retirement community for older people, recently told me that I'm also following 80 and 90-year-old rules. So one of the fun things about rest is that we can often learn a lot about the ways to rest, how to listen to and respond to our needs to rest, and how to help other people rest by watching and listening to the beings around us. So now, Gray, Jenna, and I are going to share 3 short stories about rest with everyone here. As we tell them, you might think about what they're telling you.
Hi, I'm Gray. Okay. I'm going to be reading excerpt from The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating by Elizabeth Tova Bailey. When Elizabeth got very sick, she gained an interesting companion. Here's her story. In early spring, a friend went for a walk in the woods, and glancing down at the path, saw a snail. Picking it up, she held it gingerly in her hand and carried it back to home. She noticed some field violets on the edge of the lawn. Finding a trowel, she dug a few up, then planted them in the terracotta pot and placed the snail beneath the leaves. She brought the pot into the studio and put it on by my bedside. I found a snail in the woods. I brought it back, and it's right here beneath the violets, my friend said. I replied, "You did? What did you bring it in?" "I don't know. I thought you might enjoy it." "Is it alive?" I asked. She picked up the brown acorn-sized shell and looked at it. "I think it is." Why, I wondered, would I enjoy a snail? What on earth would I do with it? Then, around dinner time, I was surprised to see that the snail was awake. The visible part of its body was nearly 2 inches long from its head to its tail, and moist. The rest of it was hidden in the attached inch-high brown shell, which was balanced gracefully on its back. I watched as it moved down the side of the flower pot. As it glided along, it gently waved its tentacles on its head. Throughout the evening, the snail explored the sides of the pot and the dish beneath. Its leisurely pace was mesmerizing. For several weeks, the snail lived in the flower pot, sleeping beneath the violet leaves by day and exploring by night. Each morning while I was having breakfast, it climbed back into the pot to sleep in the little hollow it had made in the dirt. Though the snail usually slept through the days, it was comforting to glance through the violets and see its small circular shape tucked underneath the leaves. Each evening the snail awoke, and with astonishing poise, it moved gracefully to the rim of the pot and peered over, surveying once again the strange country that lay ahead, pondering its circumstance with a regal air. It waved its tentacles first with this way and that, as though responding to a distant melody. The snail would make its way around, while the hands of the clock hardly moved. So I often thought the snail moved faster than time, then absorbed in snail watching, I'd find that time had flown by unnoticed. And what about that unfurling of a fern frond? Its pace was undetectable, yet day by day it too reached towards its goal. As I prepared for the night, the snail moved in its leisurely way down the side of the pot to the dish beneath. It found the flower blossoms I had placed there and began its breakfast. Sometimes I would awaken to hear it eating in the middle of the night, whereas the energy of my human visitors wore me out. The snail inspired me. Its curiosity and grace pulled me further into its peaceful, solitary world. Watching it go around its life in the small ecosystem of the terrarium put me at ease.
Thanks, Gray. So, that was a story about a snail teaching Elizabeth to rest. We also have another couple friends who want to tell us their own story about learning to rest. This is a story, but first we nap. You're also going to be able to see the pictures up on the screen. And Jenna's going to help me out with this. The sloth was napping. Rabbit showed up, the bunny showed up, and said, "Let's play." And Sloth said, "But first, we nap." Rabbit's not so sure what Rabbit thinks about this. "So, let's play!" "Okay, but first we nap," said Sloth. Rabbit wasn't so sure about this and walked off and came back with a drum. Boom, 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 boom. The sloth just snored. Boom, 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 boom. Thought Rabbit, let's try something else. And came back with a horn. Toot, 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 toot. Sloth just Well, thought Rabbit, let's try something else here. And came back with some cymbals. Crash, 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 crash. Sighed the sloth. Rabbit was getting a little tired. Pant, 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 pant. What do I do now? And came up with an idea, which was a balloon. Rabbit blew up the balloon, and what do you think he did next? He found a pin and pop. But the sloth didn't do anything. So he had a better idea. He got more balloons and blew up a lot of balloons. A lot of balloons. And pop, 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 boom. Whoa, that was loud. That's one frazzled rabbit. The sloth opened an eye and said, "Let's play?" Well, by this point, Rabbit was feeling a little tired. Oh, well, okay. But first, we nap.
Okay, one last story. This is called The Fisherman and the Businessman, a classic Brazilian story as told by Paulo Coelho. There was once a businessman who was sitting by the beach in a small Brazilian village. And as he sat, he saw a Brazilian fisherman rowing a small boat towards the shore, having caught quite few big fish. The businessman was impressed and asked the fisherman, "Oh, how long does it take you to catch so many fish?" And the fisherman replied, "Oh, just a short while." "Oh, then why don't you stay longer at sea and catch even more?" The businessman was astonished. "Oh, this is enough to feed my whole family," the fisherman said. The businessman then asked, "So what do you do for the rest of the day?" And the fisherman replied, "Well, usually I wake up early in the morning, go out to sea, catch a few fish, and then go back and play with my kids. And in the afternoon, I take a nap with my wife. And when evening comes, I join my buddies in the village for a drink, and we play guitar and sing and dance throughout the night." The businessman offered a suggestion to the fisherman. "I am a PhD in business management. I could help you become a more successful person. From now on, you should spend more time at sea and try to catch as many fish as possible. When you have saved enough money, you could buy a bigger boat and catch even more fish. And soon, you will be able to afford to buy more boats, set up your own company, your own production plant for canned food, and a distribution network. And by then, you will have moved out of this village into Sao Paulo, where you can set up HQ to manage your other branches." The fisherman continues, "And then what?" Oh, the businessman laughed heartily. "After that, you can live like a king in your own house. And when the time is right, you can go public and float your shares in the stock exchange, and you will be rich." And the fisherman asks, "And after that?" And the businessman says, "Well, after that, you can finally retire. You can move to a house by the fishing village and wake up early in the morning, catch a few fish, and then return home to play with your kids, have a nice afternoon nap with your wife. And when evening comes, you could join your buddies for a drink, play the guitar, sing and dance throughout the night." The fisherman was puzzled. "Isn't that what I'm doing now?"
So those are our stories. We've learned a little bit about rest from a lot of different folks in this time for all ages. And now, if you are interested, you can head out to our religious education classes. And I think Alex will lead us.
Jenna, if you don't mind, there's a basket of eggs. People could grab an egg to shake on their way out. And you can set it on the table out there, or the counter maybe. I'll grab them when I come back. Sorry, you don't get eggs. If you have an egg at home, probably you could shake it. All right. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open. Oh, I'm in the wrong
Our first reading this morning is from Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto by Tricia Hersey. Rest saved my life. This is my truth. My pilgrimage with rest as a form of resistance is a deeply personal one. My commitment to rest as a form of resistance came from my everyday experiences of being part of the machine-level pace of our culture and surviving the trauma of the terror of poverty, exhaustion, white supremacy, and capitalism. Our collective rest will not be easy. All of culture is collaborating for us not to rest. I understand this deeply. We are sleep deprived because the systems view us as machines, but bodies are not machines. Our bodies are a site of liberation. Our bodies are divine, and our rest is divine. There is synergy, interconnectedness, and deep communal healing within our rest movement. I believe rest, sleeps, naps, daydreaming, and slowing down can help us wake up to see the truth of ourselves. Rest is a healing portal to our deepest selves. Rest is care. Rest is radical. Our liberation is deeply connected to the portal of healing we can tap into when we rest. Wherever our bodies are, we can find rest, ease, and liberation. Part of our decolonizing resides in deprogramming from our brainwashing about rest. Resting our bodies is a form of reverence. When we honor our bodies via rest, we are connecting to the deepest parts of ourselves. We are freedom-making. Sleep deprivation is a racial and social justice issue. We must be able to sit with this deep truth. America is not a welcoming place to all bodies. America was built on the backs of Black and Indigenous people who labored without rest for centuries as the country built its economic power. White supremacy became a vehicle to poison the hearts and minds of an entire nation to view human beings as less than divine. Rest is resistance because it is a counter-narrative to the script of capitalism and white supremacy for all people. Resting is a connection and a path back to our true nature.
So if, as we continue exploring rest during this service, you want to explore rest with your hands or in other ways, we do have this table up front where there are some art supplies, but there are also some other things that might be restful. So if you want, feel free to wander up during the service and come up to this table, take something back to your seat, even a pillow, that one of those that's up here, or hang out here and rest a little bit differently. I've been learning a lot about rest the last few months. When I first went on medical leave for long COVID at the end of September, my fatigue was so deep that I had little choice but to rest deeply. But about a month into my medical leave, after I'd spent a few weeks of doing very little other than sleeping and learning the very earliest signals that I was going to start getting tired, something interesting started to happen. I reached the stage of illness where I was frustrated that I was sick and couldn't do more. Now, I usually think of this as a good sign. And I can hear some of you thinking, seriously, what's good about being frustrated that you're sick? But bear with me. Because frustration from being sick means that I, or another person who's sick, has usually emerged enough from exhaustion and illness to have the energy to be frustrated and to want to do more. But this time, my care team explained that with long COVID, it was crucial that I maintain my super slow, incremental recovery process. In other words, despite frustration, I had to be very careful to not start trying to do too much too soon, or I'd quickly be back where I'd been a month before. I had to rest, and I had to intentionally rest. And that was when I discovered that I really didn't know how to rest. It was actually a pretty unsettling awakening for me. Before this, I'd worked on learning to rest, on tempering the push of our capitalist system in my life. I had learned to take a Sabbath day so that I could turn my heart and my mind to tending my spirit, and so that I could rest. I'd learned the importance for me of sleeping 7 to 8 hours regularly every night, and for caring for my body and my spirit by practicing mindfulness and meditation. But when it came to it, it turned out that I was struggling with allowing myself to rest, not just as a tool that would allow me to do the next list of tasks, no matter how much I enjoyed them. I didn't know how to rest in the ways I now needed to. I suspect, well, let's be honest, I know that I am not alone in this. And don't be afraid, don't think that I'm looking at any of you individually too hard, because this isn't just about each of us. This is about our larger culture and what it's taught us about rest. During my medical leave, my spiritual director and I stumbled into this cultural problem when she asked me who my rest models were, who had taught me to rest. And I couldn't think of anyone. And in December, when I got Trisha Hershey's book, Rest is Resistance, she helped me put better language to this. Not knowing how to rest and not letting ourselves do it, except when we use it as a tool to be more productive immediately afterwards, that's a cultural problem. It's something that capitalism and white supremacy culture, including heteropatriarchy, have dropped on us and trained in us. So to find other ways, we often have to look to people who are actively resisting these systems. People like Trisha Hersey or the Brazilian fishermen that we heard about earlier for rest models. Or we have to look to other beings. When my spiritual director and I were wrestling with my crisis about not knowing how to rest, my eyes settled on a bulletin board of cards across the room that many of you had sent me to encourage me in my recovery process. These are some of them. A little sleepy puppy, a turtle floating along with a drink, a beautiful natural scene, and there are many more. They show other beings resting. And so I started to learn to rest from my dog, from my mom's cat, from the snail I was reading about in The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating, from the cycles that we witness in the natural world, especially Earth as we turned towards autumn and winter. We might look to other beings as we have throughout this service. What might a tree, geese, a sloth and a bunny, a puppy or a kitten teach us about ways to rest? And then what might we do with those lessons? Because it turns out that just identifying some of the ways to rest isn't enough. You actually have to do it. You actually have to rest. And yes, that's a lot easier said than done. Having some kind of plan for when or how to rest often helps. Noticing when and where you might rest during your day, having other people encouraging you probably helps even more. For me, a friend recommended that I put rest as a recurring item on my to-do list, on my calendar. Now, the same thing might not work for you, but when I see rest and check it off each day, I feel my support network cheering me on, rejoicing with me that I took care of myself, that I rested well that day, or helping me offer myself self-compassion for the ways I didn't rest, that I needed to, and helping me figure out what I need to do differently tomorrow. For me, learning to rest has also been part of a larger healing journey, one where I learned a lot about accepting change, about equanimity, about surrender, about self-compassion, about how to receive loving kindness, compassion, and care more fully. Actively working on these things each day became and remains a crucial part of my journey. That's partly because it turns out that working on these things is an iterative cycle, and healing from a chronic or serious illness has a way of taking us through this terrain again and again. After we've done one layer of work and have surrendered to what is and accepted change with equanimity, once we've learned to both exercise self-compassion and accept love and compassion from those around us, a few days or weeks or months later, circumstances give us an opportunity to do that work again in deeper ways. Another lovely book, How to Be Sick, a Buddhist-inspired guide for the chronically ill and their caregivers by Tony Bernhard, gave me more language for these processes and gave me more insight on how my spiritual practices, my physical healing, and my practices of rest could come together. And by the way, these books are going to be part of the minister's bookshelf out in the library shortly. Now, this was particularly important because resting well, like many good spiritual practices, often causes grief or other hard things we might try to not face to surface. When we rest, not only do we have space to process these things, but we have to process them. There are many important things that happen when we're resting. When we sleep, our bodies and minds are not only recharging, they're also cleaning up. They're piecing things together and creating new possibilities. And they're doing these things in very real, very literal, and physical senses. Not only have my body and brain needed to heal from exhaustion and the damage caused by excess inflammation, but my brain has also needed to rest to support its neuroplasticity. That is, the brain's ability to continue to rebuild neural pathways and networks that were damaged by inflammation. And so, as I continue to heal, I continue to need more rest, and I continue to need to engage with the spiritual practices of surrender, acceptance, and self-compassion. What's more, it turns out I need to rest, and we all need to rest, because I'm not just here talking about myself, right? I'm here talking about all of us. Because it's in rest that we're given space to dream and to imagine new possibilities. The world does not stay the same, and so we can't either. What's more, the world isn't working great. Everyone isn't experiencing liberation, and we know that none of us is truly free until all of us are free. We need to change our culture, and so to live love fully and fiercely into the world, we need to imagine new possibilities, new ways of being, new pathways for collective action. Our bodies need to become sites of liberation. This isn't just about any of us individually, although each of our rest is important. But even more so, it's about all of us as a culture learning to rest. It's about creating collective rest. And so, let's enter a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer as I share the invocation that Tricia Hersey uses for collective nap experiences. Yes, those are a thing. She says, "The doors of the nap temple are open. Won't you come? This is an invitation for weary souls to rest. This is a resistance. This is a protest. This is a counter-narrative to the lie that we aren't doing enough. We are enough. This is a counter-narrative to the lie that our worth is tied to the grind of capitalism and the lie of white supremacy. You are enough simply by being alive. Thank you for living. Thank you for resisting. Thank you for creating. Thank you for dreaming. Thank you for resting. We believe that our healing can visit us while we are napping, while we are resting, while we are sleeping, while we are slowing down. We believe that naps provide a dream and visioning space to invent, to create, to heal, to imagine. This is what resistance looks like. Won't you come? This is resistance. This is protest. May we accept this invitation. May we rest well and help our communities rest well. So may it be. Amen. And so, as we turn our attention to ourselves and what we might do with these messages of rest, who are your rest models? That is, who are the beings, whether animals, plants, or people, from whom you want to learn to rest? What are the things that you do to rest, or that you want to begin to do to rest? Tricia Hersey gives some ideas about how to rest in Rest is Resistance. And here, they're going to show up on the screen, too, are some of the ways that she suggests that we can start to rest. First, detox from social media weekly, monthly, or more. Begin to heal the individual trauma you have experienced that makes it difficult for you to say no and maintain healthy boundaries. Start a daily practice in daydreaming. Accept that there is no quick fix, magic bullet, or instant change. Slowly accept that you have been brainwashed. Your socialization to capitalist culture makes this true. Begin to deprogram by accepting this truth. Slow down. You are enough. If you have to repeat this to yourself every day, do so. Begin to repair the way white supremacy and capitalism have wrecked your self-esteem and self-worth. Understand that exhaustion is not productive. You are not resting to gain more energy, to be more productive, and to do more. Listen more. Create systems of community care. And if you want to look at these later, they're in the bibliography for this service. Another piece of learning to rest is figuring out what rest looks like for each of us. Realizing that I didn't know how to rest deeply was startling for me this past fall. I learned some ways of resting that work for me by listening to what other people do, by observing animals and plants and natural cycles, and getting engaged with the nap ministry. Here are some of the ways that resting can look like that Tricia Hersey lists in her book. Closing your eyes for 10 minutes. A longer shower in silence. Meditating on the couch for 20 minutes. Daydreaming by staring out of a window. Sipping warm tea before bed in the dark. Slow dancing with yourself to slow music. Experiencing a sound bath or other sound healing. A sun salutation. A 20-minute timed nap. Praying. Crafting a small altar for your home. A long, warm bath. Taking regular breaks from social media. Not immediately responding to texts and emails. Deep listening to a full music album. A meditative walk in nature. Knitting, crocheting, sewing, quilting. Playing a musical instrument. Deep eye contact. Laughing intensely. These are just some ideas. Resting can also be other things. We might look to other beings as we have throughout this service. What might a tree, geese, a sloth, and a bunny, a snail, a puppy, or a kitten teach us, teach you about ways to rest? As Hershey says, rest must be practiced daily until it becomes our foundation. So now, I invite you to take that permission slip that you received when you came in. If you're online, this was sent out with the order of service, or you can just take a piece of paper and fill it out with your rest inspirations and ways that you want to give yourself so that these can be inspirations or commitments for you. And so now let's give ourselves some permission to rest as we fill out our permission slips.
You're welcome to sing along if you know the song and want to. It's not required. You can also listen if you like. May I be filled with loving kindness.
How we give, what we do with our lives, our time, our resources, is a reflection of our values. In response to the abundance we are blessed with, every week, this congregation donates generously to organizations in the community whose work aligns with our values and principles. Our community partner agency this month is the Iowa City South District Neighborhood Association, which sponsors the Diversity Market, among other community events. The market, held in the Pepperwood Plaza during the summer months, empowers minority entrepreneurs, including women, youth, and those in the Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, LGBTQ+, refugee, immigrant, and returning citizen communities. In the sanctuary, the ushers will collect the offering. All cash contributions go directly to our community partner agency. In addition to assisting our community partner, you may contribute towards your pledge to our society or contribute to the congregation to provide additional support for our operating expenses. You may also contribute by check using the memo line to designate the purpose, or you may give electronically by following the link shown on the screen or through Realm. The offering is a sign of commitment to this free congregation, which is completely supported by the generosity of all who join with us. As we give and receive the offering, may we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts. May what has been shared today help us more fully affirm our interconnection and live into love and justice. Immediately after the service, we will have time for all to join in conversation and community. If you're online, a link to our Zoom coffee hour room is being dropped into the chat. And if you're in person, we gather in the fellowship hall for conversation. Our discussion questions, which you may want to chat about during coffee hour, are: how do you rest? How do you want to rest? When are some times you might be able to carve out rest moments? And how might you help others cultivate times to rest? And now, to close our service today, we will sing hymn 100 in the gray hymnal, I've Got Peace Like a River. Please stand in body or spirit as you are able. Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
Like hope, rest is disruptive. It allows us space for us to envision new possibilities. Today and in the days to come, as we move in the world, let's create space for ourselves to rest, for others to rest, and let us go in peace, love, and justice, living love ever more fully and fiercely into this world. Amen and blessed be.
Amen.